What is up, guys? Frosty Aussie here today for another Frosty feature. Today we have another member of our Annihilators team. For some reason, we have Gorr the God Butcher. So if you haven't been to one of these before, what this is a comic book background on the tunes that you use in Marvel Strike Force. And I'm the guy that takes you through it. So with that, let's begin. According to Scopely, what this is the blog post description of the background of the character. We're going to read this out loud, and then we are going to rate it at the end of the feature. So, here we go. Gorr was once a mortal living on a barren planet, but he was driven to madness and vengeance after the death of his family, which he blamed on the gods' indifference. After discovering the all-black Necrosword, he began a crusade across the cosmos to slay deities, believing none were worthy of worship. Now a god butcher, Gorr's relentless quest brought him into conflict with Thor, whom he sought to destroy to fulfill his vision of a godless universe. So with that, a lot of details, a lot of ups and downs in that description. We will look at that at the end of the feature. So, this is our man. This is Gorr. Name: Gorr. First appearance: Thor, God of Thunder, #2, back in 2012. Actually, all the stuff we're going to talk about today is essentially the entire line of God of Thunder. Gorr actually isn't in a whole bunch of content. He's in, I think, his entire span of content is Thor, God of Thunder in the King Thor storylines. I think those are the only as of this recording date, these are the only two times we actually see Gorr in the comics. So he's only around, I think, in total for less than 20 issues of anything. So we're not going to cover his entire history today, but we're going to get pretty dang close. Powers and abilities: Gorr has none. So just in case you were wondering in the back, the way that Frosty Features works, we talk about our 616 characters, and specifically with Gorr, he actually has no powers. All of his powers are granted to him via the Necrosword, the All Black. So we'll talk about that a little bit more moving forward. But as it is, Gorr essentially is he is equivalent to a very old human being. I think you all see where this is going. Aliases: God Butcher and the Redeemer. Once again, he's not around for a whole bunch to get a bunch of aliases or anything like that. So very specifically, God Butcher and then the Redeemer, as in redeeming essentially mankind, peoplekind, or however you want to look at it. So he's definitely not a person or human. So that's where he gets kind of that Redeemer status. Affiliations. This one's really hard. Essentially, he has none. The Marvel Wiki classifies a leader of the Black Berserkers, but the Black Berserkers are not actually a team because they're essentially mindless zombies he creates. Not even zombies, mindless monsters he creates, so it doesn't really... I don't think it counts as a team. But I can say he's unaffiliated because as his story starts, he is in a native tribe of whatever his species is. But he's outcast, so he did have that affiliation for a while in his own storyline, so it still kind of has to count, but it's unnamed. We don't actually even know what his people are called, so, yes. Background: he is from a planet with no name. That's actually what, the comic book community calls it, is the planet with no name. It's not just, like, a random planet out there. It is assigned planet with no name as of right now. The idea is being that it's like a nickname because that's what they refer to it in the comics. So essentially, what the planet with no name is more or less a desert planet, and his people have lived for centuries and centuries, and essentially they live long enough to procreate, but they're walking around their planet trying their best to find some form of food or whatever, and they starve to death or die of what they call the sun fever, which I assume is similar to heat stroke, or other various monstrous kind of ways to die on a desert planet. which it'll also involve other alien life forms or natural disasters or what have you. So essentially they live long enough to procreate and move on, and their kids continue to kind of just walk and look for some way to survive. Essentially the most miserable existence you can conceive. That's sort of his entire race's thing. Who died? His parents, his kids, and a god. So with who died, this section is can't be a superhero supervillain without somebody dying. So in his situation, his parents died. When we first see Gorr, his dad's already dead. And then we watch his mom die, we watch his kids die, and we watch his wife die, which I didn't even put on there. Everybody dies because, once again, they are living in the worst possible conditions imaginable, right? And they are beholden to this idea that their gods will bless them, right? They have multiple gods that shine down upon them, and they leave them offerings, and they have all this very religious, like, this is how we keep this in order. It's essentially, it very much comes off as a mechanic for hope for his people, but even as a kid, Gorr exhibits kind of a distaste for the idea of there being gods, just because of how cruel the world is to them. The All Black, the Necro Sword. So, All Black, the Necro Sword. So, once again, Gorr has no powers. All Black, the Necro Sword, is essentially one of the most powerful weapons / tools in the Marvel Universe. So, Null created the first symbiote, which was the All Black, which took the form of the Necro Sword. So the Necro Sword essentially is this weapon that can kind of take the form of any weapon that is available, like any weapon you can imagine. Think Green Lantern ring. It can turn into anything you want it to be, and it also, the All Black will fuse with you, which gives you essentially, it's like a symbiote, but it's not to the extent of like Spider-Man, where it's like, it's a full symbiote that covers you exactly. It's more or less like an extension that you can use to, like create things, attack, whatever, but it doesn't like fully consume you like a Venom or a Carnage, and it doesn't have its own kind of mind, which is kind of crazy, because essentially what it works as is, it kind of creates, like, whoever has the All Black Necro Sword, it kind of creates an avatar. So like whoever's holding it sort of is the avatar of Null, very similar to like a Moon Knight, or the my favorite comparison, because Gorr very much is a Thor villain. With Gorr, with Thor, like for example, if Thor is wielding Mjolnir, that's kind of peak Thor, more or less. In the event that somebody else is wielding Mjolnir, they get Thor's powers, but they're not necessarily as strong as Thor with Mjolnir, right? So this is very similar to that same situation. You have the All Black Necro Sword. If somebody wields it, they get a lot of the powers of Null, but they're not as strong as Null necessarily, right? So these are very important things to consider with All Black. The All Black is in a lot more, stories than just Gorr the God Butcher, but a long period of time of the Necro Sword's lifespan, Gorr has it. And actually, all in all, Gorr actually wields the Necro Sword for, I think it's 3,000 years. So, interesting stuff. Black Berserkers. So the Black Berserkers, I kind of referenced them earlier. So these are essentially Gorr's army that he raises using the All Black. They're mindless black goo monsters, so very similar to symbiotes, but definitely not quite to the same extent. They're not parasitic in any way. They're just completely beholden under the control of Gorr. But also to some extent weaker, because we don't actually see like a hive mind connection or anything like that. Once again, the All Black is the first symbiote, so maybe debatably not the best symbiote. But as far as magic weapons and things like that, absolutely and utterly powerful, right? But so very similar to all the symbiotes, but not exactly the same. But yes, so the Black Berserkers essentially are one tell that Gorr is coming for you, is that you see armies of these things coming through. And especially when we're looking at things like King Thor, we are introduced to him fighting hordes of these things before Gorr shows up. Oh, actually, hold on, we're backing up. Another thing I wanted to say about All Black the Necro Sword that's very important to know. When you kill somebody with the All Black, it captures the soul of that person. So the All Black essentially gets more powerful the more people that it kills, right? It's very important to keep in mind, especially with Gorr's motives and kind of plot as he moves forward. Relationships. So these are all the relationships Gorr has. He's a very lonely guy. He pretty much just goes place to place killing gods. So he has unnamed parents, which also, for a comic book character, the amount of unnamed people he has related to him that we actually see in comic book frames is kind of crazy. Because usually if somebody shows up in a one comic book frame, it's like, oh, hey, Tim, you know, and then Tim dies. In his situation, a lot of people, like, we see his mother, but she never gets a name, and she's in a couple pages, right? Same with his wife, Ara. She gets a name because she's in a panel, and most of the time, if they're in a panel, they get a name. At least 3 daughters. It's referenced that he has several daughters, but it's not explained exactly how many he had. And then he has an unborn child. His wife is pregnant when she meets her demise. And then Agar is his son, that he also loses, but is named, and he actually comes up again in one of the storylines we're going to kind of talk about today. But yes, a lot of unnamed affiliations. Also, when I guess there's names there, so we'll talk about it. So notable events. So Thor, God of Thunder, in origin. We're going to talk about his origin as if it was separate than Thor, God of Thunder, but essentially what we're doing, his origin is in Thor, God of Thunder. So essentially what we're doing is talking about all of Thor, God of Thunder, but there's a lot there. And then once again, the only other arc he's in as of this recording date is King Thor. So, I just want to talk about Thor, God of Thunder because it's a cool story, heavily worth the read, and it is Gorr's basis, and he's the main feature all the time in it. So definitely worth checking out. So origin. So 3,000 years ago, on a planet without a name, we see a baby Gorr and his mother. And Gorr essentially, they're getting ready to leave. They're leaving their cave, and Gorr's like, "Hey," and she puts this little like apple on the ground, and Gorr's like, "Why are we leaving that? We're like starving to death. Like Dad died of heat fever just a few minutes ago. Like he's over there in the corner." And we're heading out, and we're just leaving food behind. And his mom's like, "Hey, it's an offering for the gods. Like, if you want the gods to protect you, like they have me, like I've been so fortunate in my life that I'm gonna leave this apple for the gods so that I continue to have these blessings." And Gorr's like, "Okay, Mom, I guess. Like, I guess that makes sense, sorta." And they walk outside, and she's killed by sand tigers. That's right, you heard me correctly. Sand tigers. So, she tells Gorr to run, and she gets her spear out, and she fights. She dies off camera, and Gorr continues to run into the desert on his own. And then we skip ahead a few years where Gorr is fully grown, and he's running around with a tribe of his native peoples that we don't know the name of. And he has a pregnant wife, and he's scrounging food together for her, little scraps of roots and such. And he's like, "Here, this is all we have." And she's like, "I can't eat this. Our children are hungry." He's like, "You're dang right, our children are hungry, but you also have an unborn child inside you, and that thing needs to be born for some reason. So here, have this stuff." And then she all of a sudden is like, "Oh, we've been so fortunate through our lives. We're gonna find that source of food. We're gonna make it." And Gorr's like, "Are you freaking kidding me? Our whole lives have been awful. Everything is awful. Where are the gods? Everybody talks about the gods." And she's like, "Yeah, but the gods have blessed us, and it's been really great." And then in response to saying the gods have blessed us, an earthquake happens, and she falls in, killing her. She doesn't kill herself, but she dies in the earthquake, and along with the unborn child. And Gorr, once again, is destitute. So currently kill count for Gorr, both parents, wife, and unborn child. And then we go a little bit further ahead, where we find Gorr carrying his son, and we find out that all of his daughters died of sun fever. So at least 3 more daughter deaths. And then we've got son dying at his hands. So I want to tell you right now, parents who are watching this potentially, if you want to read something that's going to make you cry your freaking face off, read the part with Gorr carrying his son. I don't even have kids, and guess what? I am pretty much bald in reading this. So he's like, the kid's like, "Oh, hey, where's Mom?" And he's like, "Mom's been dead for a while. Don't worry about it. You're not feeling good. Just go to sleep." and he's like, oh, hey, I think I hear a waterfall, Dad. And there's this whole poetic thing about a waterfall. And his dad's like, yeah, there's a waterfall here and more food than we can ever eat if you close your eyes, whatever. And it's essentially just his son dying, and it's freaking sad. It's super sad. Very well written, super sad, right? So his son is a Gar. This is important because it's going to come up a little bit later. His wife is Aura, son is a Gar. Their stories kind of come back a little bit later, but with the death of his son, Gorr is which, you know, at this point, right, he's had a lot of people die just because, not for any reason. They die because of how horrible their lives are, essentially, right? And he's just kind of dealing with that. And so at this point he loses it. He's like, this is ridiculous. I'm gonna bury my son. And so he buries his son. And for us, you know, me saying that sounds pretty normal, but for their tribe, for their people, the I forget his name, Rugok, their tribe leader comes up, and I'm pretty sure his name's Rugok, and he's like, Gorr, you're freaking crazy, Barrett. You're hiding him from the gods. You need to we hang our dead from the trees so the sky gods can take them up to the skies, and they can live happily with everyone else. You know this. And Gorr's like, you're freaking crazy. There are no gods. If there were gods, why would we be living like this? There's no way this is what life is supposed to be. I'm burying my son so that he can, you know, be rest or whatever. And then everyone around him is like, did he just say there's no gods? Absolutely not. Time to stone him. So they all start picking up rocks and they start pelting Gorr. And if we recall, Gorr has no powers. And Gorr, once again, is pretty much a human being with tentacles coming out of his head, because why not? You know, it's cool. So they start throwing rocks at him. And they're like, he's weird. Get him out of here. And then Rugok is like, yeah, you're an outcast. You don't belong with us. Get screwed, jabroni. And the whole tribe walks away and essentially leaves Gorr to die. Gorr's like walking along, and you know, he got the crap kicked out of him. He's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do now. This sucks. And all of a sudden, he sees two gods come out of the sky, and they're in a battle. There's a god of light and a god of darkness, and they're in a big battle, and they're fighting. Blah 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 blah. Also, by the way, there's gonna be a lot of retcons here at the end of the origin part of this story. So we'll address that in just a second. So we just got a raid from Rolf Kieran. Thank you so much, my friend. We're in the middle of Frosty Features. So they're battling. He sees them coming out of the sky, and he sees them, and he's like, oh, gods are real. Gods are real? What the heck? This isn't good. Screw them. They've screwed us. Screw them. So when the gods crash to the earth, and he walks to them, and the dark god isn't moving, and the light god is like, hey, I need some help, dude, because he's obviously it's all, especially when this was written, right? When this was written, it wasn't null. That's the important thing you need to know. So when it was written, it wasn't null. That was the dark god. That changed later. So anyway, the light god, the god that is obviously there to represent heroes or whatever, he rolls over and he looks at Gorr, and he's like, please help me. And Gorr's like, help you? You all don't help us. Like, why would I help you? Because you got like this fight with another god, and you've been living so lavishly, and then all of a sudden you get in a fight and you lose your life? Screw you, bro. And the weapon the dark god was using is like, hey man, that guy's pretty pissed off. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna go to his hand, and it goes into his hand, and he gets essentially like this crystal dagger, which is the all black, and he decapitates the god. And in the story, if you read it, he kills both of the gods. So the dark god is also there. That is later retconned to be null, and he isn't killed by Gorr. He disappears. But in the actual Thor God of Thunder storyline, Gorr kills them both. Because he says it. He's like, those are my first two god kills or whatever. So he kills the gods, and then he's got a sword, and he's like, oh, I have a lot of power, and I'm feeling really good. I wonder if there's more gods. Having the idea that all of them just completely disregard everyone all the time, what have you. So, yes. So moving on. with that, we go into the actual Thor God of Thunder storyline. So this storyline's pretty cool. At first, it takes place in 3 different time periods. We have Gorr, as he's beginning to kill gods. He meets Thor before Thor is even worthy of wielding Mjolnir. And it's like 954 AD or something like that. So we have that time period. We've got modern 616 Thor with Mjolnir, what have you, and then we have King Thor, which takes place, I think, 1,000 years in the future of that. So essentially what we have here is Gorr has made it his point to go and kill all the gods. So in the early timeline where we have young Thor, we see that he comes upon Thor and he's like, all right, so he's like, you're gonna die. We see Thor. He is celebrating with a bunch of Vikings. They have taken down a frost giant on Midgard, and they're having a good time. There's beer, and somebody shows up, and they're like, "Oh my God! There's a guy with a scary face sticking out of the water. He's obviously evil." And Thor's like, "I'm an evil killer, so let me grab my axe, and we're gonna go do something about this." And he goes upon it, and he finds that it is the decapitated head of a god of fear. And in his eyes, he sees. Or excuse me, it's an American god, and in his eyes he sees, he claims he sees this, what this god saw upon his death was more fear than I've ever seen before in real life. And that's sort of the intro to the idea of the gods dying, because from there we go forward to modern day Thor, where he comes upon a bunch of dead Indigor gods and a pantheon of dead gods. Just a bunch of slaughter. So at this point, this Thor knows who Gorr is, but in the past, as we see young Thor find Gorr, so when they come into conflict, they get in a fight, and it very much, Gorr is actually getting the upper hand for a lot of it, but the Vikings that Thor was partying with kind of jump in on the battle and give Thor the chance to kind of turn the fight around. So Thor cuts off Gorr's arm and essentially kicks the crap out of him and is like, okay, well, you're dead now. I'm done with this. So Thor thinks he's dead. So then when we get modern Thor and he sees all the slayed gods, Gorr is not the first thing that comes to mind, because in Thor's mind, now that I'm saying it a lot, I hate that their names are kind of similar. In Thor's mind, Gorr has been dead for a very long time. So at this modern storyline, we find that Gorr is very much still alive, and what had happened was he cut off his arm, and Gorr was like, okay, you made me mad, right? I wanted to kill you. You were pretty strong and I couldn't kill you, but as I kill more gods, I get stronger. So I'm saving you for last, big guy. You're going to be the final god standing, and I'm going to come and kill you with all of my amazing might and power from this sword. So he disappears and he starts mutilating gods all over the place, but from far distances coming in. So ultimately, every time we see a different future version of Gorr, he's exponentially stronger than the previous iteration. So when modern Thor finally runs into Gorr, this Gorr is significantly stronger, but Thor also is significantly stronger, now wielding Mjolnir and having 1,000 years worth of battle experience, what have you, or 1,000 years of battle experience, and so he's able to actually keep up very well with Gorr, and he essentially gets to a point of a killing blow with Gorr, and he's swinging his hammer and he's about to end it, and Gorr's like, yeah, no, I got involved a little bit with the forever pool, so I've decided that you're going to the future, and that this is how we send people to the future in comic books, right? He goes, you're going to the future, bing! And so Thor appears in front of King Thor, another 1,000 years in the future. And King Thor's like, hey, you're late. When I showed up, I was earlier than you. Gorr's been here for 1,000 years. And Thor's like, what? Because when he shows up, it's King Thor fighting a bunch of the Black Berserkers. And Thor's like, he's been here for how long? And then we see this like super powerful, like ramped up Gorr. And he is like, oh, multiple Thors? This is going to be fun. And so essentially he brings the young Thor into the mix. So we have 3 Thors. And at this point, Gorr has killed a bunch of gods, yes, but he also has enslaved a bunch of gods, and he has enslaved a bunch of gods and taken out a bunch of planets and used these god slaves and the cores of these planets to form together and make a god bomb. So the way the god bomb works is it is a bomb that is triggered by the All Black, and the point of it, the magic behind it, is that it will kill all gods that ever lived. This is throughout time and space in the multiverse. It will kill all gods that have ever lived and ever will live and do live right now. It is just it's a control alt delete, no more gods, period, at all. It's the universe that he wants. And essentially, effectively, he makes it, and it theoretically works, right? So with that, the three Thors are like, all right, you know what? There's three of us. One of us is pretty strong. We got the freaking really old one that has the Allfather powers. We got this. No problem. So all three of them go against this Gorr. This Gorr has killed thousands of gods, maybe more, at this point. And he takes out all three Thors pretty easily, and he's like, yeah, that didn't work out so well for you. And so the three Thors are like, what do we do now? And modern Thor is like, you know what if the rest of the gods and the life force pray for me, and when he tries to detonate the bomb, I'm just gonna freaking tank it. And all the other Thors are like, yeah, you're gonna die. And he's like, well, I'm gonna die anyway if I don't do it, so we're gonna hop onto this train. And so Gorr goes to use the All Black to blow up the universe of gods, and Thor grabs the trigger, grabs the All Black, and as the god bombs exploding with the prayers of the fellow gods, the enslaved gods, and all of the goodness in the world, he's able to absorb the explosion. He absorbs the All Black. So then all of a sudden, he has that. He's got Mjolnir, and also on this way, King Thor was like, you know what you need? A second Mjolnir. So my man is sitting there, he's dual wielding these bad boys, and he's got the All Black, and he turns around and Gorr's like, ah, crap. And he's like, yeah, you're screwed. God bless. And he more or less, he hard KOs the Gorr, the God Butcher, but it doesn't kill him, because Gorr escapes through it like a little time stream situation, and he poofs back into olden times with regular Thor in an attempt to escape. He's not doing so hot, super injured, what have you, and then young Thor is like, yo, I still got an axe, and he cuts his head off, and that's how he dies the first time, and then he does die, and then we see him resurrected in King Thor by King Loki, and then we have a problem because the All Black likes to corrupt people, right? So if Gorr hated gods before, the All Black made it so much worse. So now we have a Thor with the All Black, which could serve as a problem. But King Thor looks at him and he's like, yeah, we don't need that. And he uses his All-Father powers and just be like, psh, get out of here, All Black. And then he takes the All Black sword and throws it into a black hole to never be seen again, but soon to be found because it's comics. A-chicka-pow! So that's Thor God of Thunder. Pretty cool stuff. And then, like I said, the next time we see Gorr in comics is through the King Thor storyline, which is super cool. So, with that, we are going to move on to power level. So, Marvel Strike Force doesn't care about power level, but here on Frosty Features, we do. Now, the way that this works, if you are a multiversal threat, you can knock over the multiverse as it stands. Not just your universe, but all universes. Universal means you can end a universe, a reality, maybe hop on over to another one, and then end that one just because you're petty, and you're really mad that other people are living better than you. Cosmic means that you are a threat on a planetary scale, taking out things like planetary bodies, or with enough time and effort, things like solar systems or galaxies. Nuclear means you have power equivalent to that of a nuclear bomb, leveling things like small cities or small planetary bodies, once again, given enough time. Super Soldier means you have abilities beyond all of that of human capabilities, taking out things like brick walls all the way up to a city block. Once again, enough time and effort. City level means that you have powers equivalent to that to a human being that is trained all the way up to the tippy-toppy form of shape and skill, thinking of people like Olympic athletes. So with our super soldier, our city, we have a lot of our ninjas, our secret agents, our mercenaries and stuff in our Marvel canon. And then finally there's Greg. Greg is the undead Asgardian that is spawned by Hela in Marvel Strike Force, And Greg, due to undead Asgardian physiology, and when he's left all alone, he's not really worth anything. And for the sake of argument, because it's fun, Greg is equivalent to that of a regular human being. So, in the event that I am walking through Spencer's Gifts, and I'm staying away from the adult section because I'm pure, but I'm going through all of the cool emo wristbands and stuff, and Greg turns around and he grabs one of those wristband things, and he grabs a glove with studs on it, and he smacks me as if we were supposed to duel. I turn around and I grab a leather belt with the studs on it as well, and we begin a fight to the death. I theoretically, as a regular human being, could theoretically take out Greg. So, with that, Greg, all that to say, Greg is equivalent to that of a regular human being. So, in the case of Gorr the God Butcher, what do we have? So, typically we go with whatever the most modern version of the character is. We go with the character in sort of a base state, right? So the big thing about Gorr is if you take the sword away, he does not have powers. But here's the thing. If you take the power away, he still has 3,000 years of combat experience, and he's not weak. So, in the case of Gorr, we have a city-level individual. He is essentially a human that has 3,000 years of combat experience, so martial arts and lots of strength. So he is very similar to an Olympic athlete. He's not quite Greg level, as you may have been expecting walking up to this. Now, when Gorr has the all black, this gets a little iffy, right? He easily goes toe-to-toe with Thor. Thor being cosmic level. And then he does put together the God Bomb, but it takes about 1,000 years. But he does construct a God Bomb that has multiversal effect. Influence and effect is not the same thing as your actual power level, right? Your actual power level being what you can actually topple as it goes. Because the All Black is so powerful, I argue that puts Gorr the God Butcher, when he's wielding the All Black, at a universal level. Because he could level something like a timeline or reality if that's what he wanted to do. That wasn't Gorr's intent, right? So his intent here actually brings hides his power level, because he has no interest in destroying a whole universe. Us as regular people don't affect Gorr, right? We're not the ones that didn't help him. We don't have the capability to help him, so he has no reason to kill us, right? So he's the God Butcher, right? So, in that situation, we have, he does have the ability to, like, go back in time, end time streams. We also are operating heavily in the Gorr the God Butcher kind of timeline. We're operating in Earth 14412 and going kind of in and out of the 616, right? So there is a multiversal aspect to him, especially after he gets to the Forever Pool. So it's very important to consider that he is that powerful, and Null is that powerful. And to think about it, he is a step down from Null, even with the All Black. So very, very strong individual, and you know, he's just another, like, yes, he's good in Marvel Strike Force. Suppose he's gonna be good. We thought Ares was gonna be good too, and see how that aged. But he's supposed to be good, but he actually is on a tier that he could have been a Dark Dimension level character. This reminds me very similar as when Kang came out as a character. Kang is essential in the game. He's great, but he was just sort of a regular release, right? And then according to Scopely, honestly, not a bad description. Some of it is a little bit, it's very generalized, just so that it can kind of fit with the art design of the Toon we're getting in Marvel Strike Force very much is based on the comics, but I feel like this description was generalized so it could fit both the comics and the film, but it doesn't explicitly talk about his kids. His kid in the film is a girl that, like, survives. It's Love. Horrible movie. Sorry. Thor: Love and Thunder, bad. But Love is Gorr's daughter. The spoiler, it's been over a year since the movie came out. I'm sorry. So that's quite a bit different. That would get it twisted. They left all the details out so that they couldn't, like, they couldn't overlap it. Because this is so generalized, it has really good words to describe it, though. It is generalized and none of it's necessarily wrong, so I say nice try. It could have been better, but honestly, the way they wanted to execute this, it's a pretty good blog post description. They get way worse than that, and I think that's worth it. And that is Frosty Features Gorr the God Butcher. I hope that you all enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments your favorite Gorr moments, be it in Thor Love and Thunder or the comics. Let me know if I get anything wrong. I know I left a couple of things out in the Thor God at Thunder storyline, so you can point that out too. That's totally fine. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this here on YouTube. It doesn't cost you anything but a couple of clicks. I thank you all so much. I hope that you all enjoyed it. I hope that you all have a fantastic weekend. Most importantly, oh wait, also I stream on Sundays, 8 a.m. Central Standard Time at the link above, where we do Frosty Features Live. I hope that you all have a fantastic weekend. Most importantly, all stay cool.